Gone are the days of formal etiquette. So, what should you do in the maddening social situations you face every day? How long should you take to respond to that message? What should you say to get out of that gathering? When you start seeing a new therapist, how do you talk about it with your first therapist, whom you were still seeing? This is No Etiquette, the podcast where we address modern etiquette questions in a nonsense fashion. I'm Vivian Lee, coming to you from Singapore, and joining me is my best friend Sophia Bose in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Hi, Sophia.
Hi, Vivian.
We are here to talk about what I feared would be a dull topic, but I think we will find a way to make it interesting, and that is pedestrian etiquette, which by its very name sounds boring. But no.
I mean, we walk a lot. We think it's very interesting.
We walk a lot. A lot of one's life is spent walking. Is it not?
Yeah, I mean, if one of us had to do the math, probably.
Certainly more in the past, but still, I think the two of us walk a reasonable amount. How much walking do you do?
I would say about 40 minutes every day. 40 to 50 minutes.
Because you walk as your commute, right? The whole way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So easily 40 minutes of walking, plus some more if you have other things to walk to.
Yeah.
I think if we count my commuting, more than an hour and a half.
Wow.
And some of that's spent on the train, for example. But a lot of it is walking. Because I'm walking to the station, I'm walking in the station, I'm walking out of the station. You know, I'm taking escalators. That's a pretty big chunk.
That's a chunk.
And that's not even counting extra walking time. So I think, unless you're the kind of person who just gets in their car and out again, in which case you have, road etiquette, which is a topic we will not even get into. But pedestrian etiquette, we use the roads. We use roads just the way cars do. But who talks about pedestrian etiquette? There's a lot of pedestrian etiquette to be spoken of.
I agree with you, except I don't think I know any of it, so you'll have to teach me.
Well, none of us knows anything, and that is why it is such a miserable mess. We've had rants about our walking woes, but one of the things we wanted to share was the story about your watch. Well, not your watch per se. Well, the story of your watch that begins with the story of another watch, which brought to our attention the importance of pedestrian etiquette in a way.
Well, thank you for mentioning my watch, which is my watch since I bought it, and I am now wearing it. I'm very proud of it. It is the G-Shock, and the exact model, I think, is GWX 5600C. And so, well, I can say much about this watch, but what I will say is this. It would not have been invented if it weren't for the fact that the person who invented it, whose name is, I'm going to butcher the pronunciation. What do I do? Should I say it? Should I not say it?
Just say it. We'll do our best.
Cool eBay, I guess. He had a pocket watch that his father had given him. It was a mechanical pocket watch, and it had like sentimental value. And
it was a pocket watch.
It was a pocket watch, and a pedestrian. It was a pocket mechanical watch, and a pedestrian bumped into him. The watch flung out of his pocket, in which it wasn't. It was in his pocket. It wasn't even and then it fell on the ground and then shattered. And the way he described it is it shattered in a way that you couldn't actually fix it. It wasn't just, the glass shattered. The actual machinery just, everywhere. And so in his mind, he was like, hey, why is it that, people have not, created watches that don't break? Why does a watch have to break when it falls? And so that started the journey towards creating the G-Shock, which won the Guinness's world record of a watch that could withstand, I think, the most weight, because a 23-ton truck ran over it and it was still fine. So
it was the quest to create a watch that could not be broken, and he largely succeeded. I mean, it's for most human purposes virtually indestructible.
Absolutely, 23 tons. When would that really? It's solar.
Yeah, you have a solar one. You have the moon phases, right?
And tides.
And the tides. So, I mean, There's an example of like, I guess, lemonade from lemons of someone who took
Mhm.
of poor pedestrian etiquette and chaos and made something wonderful out of it. But that is
Absolutely.
so rarely the case. Most of the time, struggling along with, other pedestrians, other users of the road, most of the time, it's annoying at kind of mid-range and
Mm.
harmful at high range. I mean, his
Yeah.
father's the watch from his father,
Yeah.
he will never
Yeah.
have again.
Mhm.
Um, I think
This
for
is good.
me, one of the biggest casualties of what I think of pedestrian etiquette is before like motorized scooters and bicycles coming on
Mhm.
sidewalks so much.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
think I really liked walking as thinking slash not thinking time. I think
Mm.
I want both in walking.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm walking and I'm thinking very hard about something, and sometimes I just want to be walking and really kind of mentally resting
Yeah. Yeah.
as I go from place to place.
Mhm.
And I've realized something really important to me in my pedestrian life
Yeah.
is just like the freedom to do that uninterrupted, which I think
Yeah.
one no longer has because you are sharing a sidewalk a lot of times with,
It's
at least
true.
here, with motorized scooters,
Yeah.
bicycles, quite a lot.
Yeah.
They're going quite fast, especially if they're like food delivery bicycles.
Mm.
Um, but not only that, like other pedestrians.
Yeah.
Um, I was so incensed after a while that I did some research, and we're supposed to keep to the left side while walking because cars
Okay.
drive on the left. In the
Mhm.
US, it's the right side.
Yeah.
But I think people don't know this. Like there's like I for sure did not know this, and there's not obvious enough patterns. Like they're really trying to like implement it more in like train stations, but even then people walk
Yeah.
wherever they want.
Wait,
And
so when you're walking on a
yeah.
road, like, or when you're walking on a sidewalk, you should
Yeah.
be walking to the left of the sidewalk?
I've learned that we should be keeping left. So like
Keep
say
going.
you meet somebody walking the opposite direction, if you both keep left, you just keep going, right? But what happens is that people are just walking in the middle or say they're on their right, I'm on their left. And so you have this thing where you're walking directly into another person and
Mm.
then you have to figure out like who's moving in what direction to get out
But
of
if
the other person's
they're
way.
both moving left, then okay.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
And I encountered it sometimes like going up the stairs, like you're crossing a bridge or
Yeah,
you're in a station and
yeah,
you're walking up the stairs on the same side that someone is trying to walk down the stairs. And it's
yeah.
like there's just so much of like, do we go this way? Do we go that? And I find that I quite resent having to do quite so much of that because I want my walking time to be kind of sort
Uh,
of uninterrupted and
yeah,
peaceful, not where I'm
yeah,
watching for my life,
yeah, yeah,
which
yeah.
is increasingly happening. I think my crawler to your G-Shock story is I think often of a Frank O'Hara poem
Mhm.
that I've realized I think of it because it is the frame of mind that I desire to be in when I am walking as a
Yeah,
pedestrian that has
uh-huh.
been, I think, wrested from me by
Oh,
other users of the road. I to them, most likely, right? If
yeah,
I am
could be.
probably also, the annoyance in their pedestrian life. But I wanted to read this poem because I realized this is why I get so annoyed with the lack of pedestrian etiquette.
I would like to hear this
Um,
poem.
I'll read and explain. And I'm reading it off poets.org, so I think it's out there. It is called Poem parentheses Lana Turner Has Collapsed. Do you know this one?
No, I don't.
All right, this is by Frank O'Hara. Poem. Lana Turner has collapsed. I was trotting along and suddenly it started raining and snowing, and you said it was hailing, but hailing hits you on the head hard, so it was really snowing and raining, and I was in such a hurry to meet you, but the traffic was acting exactly like the sky. And suddenly I see a headline, Lana Turner has collapsed. There is no snow in Hollywood. There is no rain in California. I have been to lots of parties and acted perfectly disgraceful, but I never actually collapsed. Oh, Lana Turner, we love you. Get up. That's the poem.
It's so lovely.
It's lovely.
Who's Lana Turner? Is she famous?
She was a famous Hollywood actress.
Ah, okay. I
Yeah.
couldn't tell if he was writing this to his friend who collapsed, and
Oh
also if that
no.
was the case, like why was it on the? Okay, I understand now.
Yeah, there's another you. He's trying to meet somebody else and
All right.
he's in traffic and he's trotting along. It's really that part that I love. So it's also a very enjambed poem, so it kind of reads all at once.
Mm,
And It's the trotting along part. I love that phrase. I was trotting along. Like, here's somebody who's on his way. He's trying to meet his friend. He's thinking about things. He's thinking about snow. He's thinking about
Yeah.
hail. He's thinking about the
Yeah.
conversations. He's
Yeah.
trying to get where he's going.
Yeah.
He's in, what we would call a flow state of he's trying to, and then he's
Yeah.
interrupted by the headline of Lana Turner, and then he's thinking
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah.
And that is what I want to be doing when I'm walking.
You're reminding me of, I have a friend who has like a visual impairment, and he said like walking has become increasingly difficult for the exact reasons that you're talking about. There's like motorized scooters, there's people don't really seem to have like a unified idea of which side of the sidewalk to be on.
Yes.
And so
Mhm.
it's actually it's become kind of like an activity that requires a lot of attention just to be safe even.
Yeah. The amount of
Yeah.
attention that you have while driving, that's what I would say. And with driving, I mean, okay, you have very fixed rules, but people aren't always following them and you're going very fast. So there's reasons,
Yeah.
but I feel increasingly like when I started thinking I as a pedestrian just need to be as paying attention while walking now as in a car, then it became, it's like, okay, I can accept
Yes.
this, but I don't
Yeah.
like it. I wish that I were still in my trotting along frame of mind and that your friend, with the visual impairment was not like finding walking to be a hazardous activity.
Like, actually for her life, right? Like she's got nearly ran over by bikes many a time. This reminds me of something that happens to me a lot that has like great frustration, and actually I would like your insight.
Oh yeah,
So,
please.
So there is a road that I have to frequent that is quite narrow,
Mhm.
and people are always walking at variable speeds on that road, like on that sidewalk.
Yep.
And I walk pretty fast. So I am the
Mhm.
hazard of which you are speaking, like two people, right? So like they're having their lovely amble, and then they see somebody power walking. And so I guess because because the sidewalk is narrow enough, sometimes I can't actually power walk, right? So like there'll be like four people or three people like walking in front, and
Yeah.
I will have to slow down like significantly.
Yeah.
What is the etiquette there, like on both ends, right? So like their speed is so different from mine, and a lot of the times what happens is like they'll like hear that someone has come behind them, and then they'll turn around, and then sometimes they'll make way because they've heard the walking and the stopping. Sometimes I will just like scooch up really close to the furthest end of it and just like go around, like I'll just do the thing, even if it's not super polite. But, like, what is the right way to navigate this? Because this happens to me often, and I actually try to avoid that sidewalk now.
For that reason. Yeah. Okay. This is great. This gets to the heart of the research I've done thus far on this topic on a day that I was so enraged. So I think probably what had set me off, this is what really irritates me. I think it was that I was walking along and a bicycle started ringing its bell furiously at me.
Yeah.
Which is a more obnoxious version of you, right? The faster person wants to pass. The slower person wants to amble.
Yeah.
What is the correct thing to do in the situation?
What is the correct thing?
I really resented, what I used to do is I would step wide out of the way for bicycles because they would just come so fast, especially if they were ringing their bell at you.
Yeah.
And I would get so resentful. I know what this was. I remember this day. I was so resentful. I was mad about something else. And on top of it, this bicycle was ringing its bell at me. And I had a moment where I thought of you and I was like, what would Sophia do? And I almost turned around and stood my ground in the middle of the path. I was so mad.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
And I think I would have done it if I had known confidently that I would not get hit by the bicycle.
Yeah.
Truly. But I was just if I do that, there is a chance that this bicycle slams into me and I die or something. Like, I think I had like an uncle who was actually killed by a bicycle.
Oh gosh, really?
Somewhere. Yeah. I have some relative. It was a bicycle or a motorcycle. Like, it really happened. You hear about it. It's real.
No, it's real.
But I was so mad about it that day. And I was like, and I felt very, I felt full of righteous anger because I felt like I should be able to trot along on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
So I looked it up and I realized I think there are kind of two separate philosophies. The former and perhaps the latter is what is prevailing today. The former is sharing the road means that people should be allowed to go at their slower speeds. And
Okay.
especially, if someone cannot move very fast, if they're visually
Got it.
impaired, if they are elderly, if they are a child, if they are
Yeah.
feeling unwell for any
Right.
reason, right? You
Yeah.
have it's not like the road where you have a minimum speed requirement.
Right. Yeah.
You should fully be allowed as a pedestrian to go at the speed you want.
Okay.
And I would think the people who want to go faster, it's on you to navigate that, like, safely. Like, say you're a jogger, jog around the slow person. If you're a bicycle, like, get off and push. It's not fun for you, but you are the more mobile one. And
Yeah.
you should be making way for the person who is less able to move, but who shares the road with you. This is how I felt for a long time. I went online and did some reading about this and read a lot of, it was, okay, I think I tried to do a fair job where I tried to read angry forums of pedestrians and angry forums of cyclists.
Okay.
And this is what some cyclists had offered, and not all of them were utter jerks. You were saying, I say this as someone who I think was a very poor etiquette cyclist and I wouldn't have hurt somebody, but I could have been on the other end of an accident because I was not very super aware. But this is what some cyclists say. They say we should share the road, and so there should be the option to pass. And so what people should do is perhaps, and this is one way, if everyone walks single file on the left side, or whatever, if everyone is walking, along a way, a bicycle should be able to gently pass you on the side, like ring their bell to alert you, not to ask you to leap out of their way so that they can barrel down the middle, but the cyclist should have the option to be able to kind of pass.
Right.
And there's a way that a pedestrian can be mindful enough. So it just means that as a pedestrian, you may have to move a little, and you need to be alert for someone ringing their bell at you. Most people said a cyclist shouldn't expect someone to move. Just like a fast walker, maybe you don't expect people to leap out of your way at the speed at which you wouldn't have to slow down. Like, I think most people said even like bikes, you should slow down if you're passing, which is what you do in traffic. But that's a principle of share the road, more in the way that also no one should hog the road to such a fashion, the sidewalk, to such a fashion that other people can't pass at a faster speed. And that makes sense to me too also. And as a fast walker myself, I feel kind of the same, right? And I do feel a little annoyed if people are ambling in like side-by-side fashion where you can't pass them. And then you're like, come on, I should be able to pass you guys safely.
Yeah. I'm so glad, number one, that you did this research. This is such an important topic.
And there's no consensus on it. I had to like dig through like, who knows, like Quora or something, like go somewhere.
No, you're right. This is so interesting, right? Because because people thought it was necessary to make such rules for this. I mean, with cars, okay, I understand why you would have rules in the, but you wouldn't on the sidewalks. But it would be good to have some kind of, signage or some kind of understanding that was more universal. Like for me, I don't get annoyed slow. If it's like, for me, it's more like I don't know what's acceptable. Like I don't know if going around is okay. Like somehow I don't know if that's like all right or if it's like really rude. Like I can't tell. Like do I just say excuse me and then go around? Like is that okay? Or like what? Like what's the way?
That's fine. Yeah, that's
go around.
Completely fine. Yeah, that's so funny to me that you've never kind of come to terms with this within yourself because you are quite a fast walker. In a town of not super fast walkers.
Yeah, I just get very confused and then slow down very dramatically, and then people can hear. It continues to be. It plagues me. So when you said every time, and in fact, I have actually. This has been a topic of idle conversation when it's like if I'm sitting next to someone I don't know very well and they're like, how are you? And I'll be like, oh yeah, speaking of streets, like how do you walk? Like this is something I bring up. Like I try to get like opinions from people.
Yeah, and there's no consensus, is there?
There's no consensus.
I think it's a little bit of the philosophies thing. In other settings, like, okay, here, I think something people are fairly good at here is in a train station, people will keep to the left of the escalator if they want to stand, and they'll walk on the right. So if you want to pass, you have the faster option. I think that's quite doable. Sometimes it's like, if I'm talking with a friend, I'll stand next to them, but I'll try to move out of the way if someone is trying to just walk down the escalator. And it's like just enough. Like that is a very clear-cut situation. And it's not as strong in places like if you're in a mall, people will slightly do it,
Mm,
but it's a little more forgivable. And you can
yeah,
also ask to pass. Like it's a
yeah,
little more okay.
yeah,
But just walking along on the sidewalk, which we all use for a great portion of our lives, there's
yeah.
no like,
There's no understanding. There's no. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
yeah. I think I've come to a point where, as I think it's because I'm a fast walker, so when it was explained to me that cyclists and motorized scooter people, like it is, I can see how it's an utter pain for them if they have to stop. If it's a simple, if it's as simple as pedestrians just keeping a little to one side, right? Then they
Yeah.
can pass at a more normal speed. Um,
Are
but I
cyclists even
do, yeah.
supposed to be on sidewalks?
Oh, okay. So that depends on where you live. Here, I think cyclists are not really supposed to be on the road unless there is a cycling lane, but there's not a lot
Oh,
of, or like there's certain like there's and like Saturday morning you'll see like
yeah,
cyclists in like the full cycling gear, like bike, and usually
yeah,
in a kind of big group. There's certain ways, but by and large, I think also because the roads are not very well set up for cyclists, because that's a more recent thing.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um, it's probably better. Actually, are they supposed to be on the sidewalk? I don't know. They're in this awkward place, right, where
yeah,
neither is quite right for them.
yeah,
And
yeah.
then motorized scooters are not supposed to be on the road, for sure.
Motorized
But they're
scooters.
also,
Okay, yeah.
yeah. So I mean, we have like there's some we had a lot of I think some were just too fast. So I
Mm,
think there's been a cut on how fast your scooter can go because you're not supposed to use the road. You're supposed to use the sidewalk because it might be like a personal mobility device, for example.
mm,
Those have to be on the sidewalk, and those take up a lot of space. I think I can be more understanding towards those usually, especially if it's someone with a mobility issue. Like then
yeah,
then you're the
yeah.
more mobile
Of
person.
course, yeah, yeah, yeah.
But yeah, otherwise the general lack. But I feel you. Like I think we have to kind of pick one, like the more utilitarian road or the sidewalk or the more amble about. And I
Yeah,
think I've just sort of in my mind been like, okay, I think my ambling about walking has just gone down greatly. Like maybe it's in a mall, maybe it's in a park. Like I think those
yeah.
where there's just a little more space and people can go at their
Hmm.
own speed. Um, I do feel sad to have lost my Lana Turner frame of mind walking. That used
Oh,
to be
I'm
great.
sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Now you have
Yeah.
to contend with traffic.
Yeah, traffic, but okay, do you feel bad about like asking like to pass? 'Cause I don't feel bad. I try not to be mean. You don't want to be rude about it, but I think it's okay to be like, excuse me or thank you if you go around the
Sometimes
side of
you sit
people.
there in a conversation, and it feels sort of
Yeah.
like intrusive and then also, there's the other thing, right? Like I'm walking very fast to get to where? Like I'm often just walking very fast for no reason other than wanting, and so part of me is also thinking about that, right? It's like, oh,
But you
well,
could.
why am I in such a hurry?
You
Am I
could
in
have
such?
a reason.
This is true.
I There's one trick I sometimes this doesn't I'm the only one I know who does this, but I thought I was kind of so sometimes when you're on the train, it's very crowded, right? So you need to prepare to get off at your
Yep.
stop, and sometimes
Yeah.
there's people and you have to ask them to move it out of the way. A
Yeah.
thing I sometimes do is I'll start stomping kind of loudly
Yeah.
so that people know that I'm moving towards the doors. And some people
Oh,
will kind of get that cue and then they'll move out of the way. Um,
this
but some
isn't
people are
this.
on their phone or they're listening to something and they don't hear it. And then I have to be like, sorry, excuse me. And I don't mind doing that on the train because you have a limited amount of time to get off. But I wonder
Interesting.
if you're not a very loud walker. I'd say like you're kind of average. I do that sometimes if I'm coming up on people. I'll like stomp a little bit louder and
This is ingenious. I never thought about stomping.
I mean,
What's
it's
about
probably kind of
stomping?
uncouth. It probably looks a little silly.
Like, how do you stomp?
I just walk a little louder as I'm approaching.
That doesn't. Okay, you're so. After we end this podcast, I will certainly start stomping to see what stomping is. Like, I know it.
Try
I
it
don't think
out.
I've ever stomped on purpose.
On the train, the silliest thing is on the train, I'm kind of stomping in place because there's not a lot of you have to signal. Um,
It's so
yeah.
funny. It's great. Okay, stomping. I can try stomping on that particular sidewalk that
Yeah.
I'm. Although to be honest, that's probably not going to work. It's usually like throngs of people, and they're not going to hear my stomp.
Oh, it's very busy.
It's quite busy.
Yeah.
The street. It's State Street. It's got all the or it's like where the Michigan Theater is. It's kind of narrow.
Yeah. It's a busy street, and you can't really just get off the sidewalk and walk on the
No,
road
because
because
there's
there's that many
cars.
cars.
Yeah. And then
Yeah,
there's parked cars as well also. So you can't it's not easy to
yeah,
get around, go around.
you can't. Yeah,
Yeah. Stomping. I can try this next time.
you can try it. There's only so much you can do when there's this is just traffic. This is pedestrian traffic. I think there's no way on a street like that, which is like shops. Like you can't have people just keep to one side. That's not the kind of
Yeah.
street it is. But yeah, I'm like resigned and resentful that one must share the road. I think that's kind of it. Road
I
being
agree.
sidewalk.
I feel the same way.
But the flip side of that is that people also need to be mindful of people like your friend who can't see so well, right? Like I don't think you have the right as a bicycle or a faster vehicle, or even to some degree as a faster person.
Yeah.
The one I hate the most is joggers who expect you to get out of the way. That really annoys me because joggers, you are so mobile. You are doing this to exercise. It will be better for your heart or something if you have to jog in place for a couple of seconds.
Yeah, and also maybe you've chosen the wrong spot to jog.
You've chosen the wrong spot to jog. Yeah, okay. So if someone tried to jog on State Street, the fool. Like, do not expect this to be a jogging route for you. You know? Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
That's bad etiquette. Do not jog on busy sidewalk.
Yeah. I think I'm reaching a sort of medium consensus where I think one, as a pedestrian, needs to be a little mindful of the other people and be prepared to make concessions.
Yeah.
But not be expected to at all times. And if you are the one asking for passage, to not do it in a fully... I think, you know what it is? No one has full rights to the sidewalk. I think that's what it is. Aside from, like, really mobility, you know, like child, elderly person. Okay, that person has additional sidewalk claim.
Sidewalk. Yeah. Okay.
But other than that, it's probably one of those give and take situations. But it does not stop me from being like incensed when somebody demands and it like smashes into my trotting along enjoyment. The very worst I think ever. Oh yeah, go on.
The very worst what?
The very worst ever. Sorry. I remember this from years ago. I was walking with a friend and this jogger was coming behind us and started like clapping loudly.
Clapping.
Just like clapping his hands together really loudly to tell us to get out of the way because I guess he was too exercisey to even be like, sometimes they'll be like on your right and then you know they're coming up on your right and you kind of, but even that, it's like, come on, man.
I have to say,
but you will say, yes,
that the fact that you are incensed by this is such a healthy response because I just feel very guilty. Like I'll be like, oh, what did I do wrong? Oh, I'm like, you know, like my first instinct is to like apologize to the jogger, and your instinct is to be upset at the jogger for expecting something of you that's not, you know, reasonable. So I think your reaction is a very healthy one and probably a good thing.
I think this is one of the few times in life when I'm so angry and confrontational about something. If I were like a stronger person, I think I would run the risk of like getting into a fight with a cyclist or something. Like if I were like a transformer, I would just stay on my path and let a cyclist run into me maybe if I were really mad someday, which is not good. It's not good. It's not an etiquette thing to do.
Sure. But I mean, there's some
That's
confidence
confession.
there, you know? There's some confidence there that I quite like.
You know what this is making me think of? This is so silly. I want there to be like the superhero of pedestrians.
There needs to be. What would they be called and what would they do?
I want some kind of like magnificent justice sorting out person, hero, heroine, to be the champion of all who must use sidewalks and adjudicate and solve issues and put rude people in their place. This is some kind of like, this is like some kind of Batman fantasy.
Yes, and this superhero would see the struggles I go through on State Street and would help me.
With compassion.
With
compassion and inner darkness, maybe. I don't know how. Maybe this is a totally wholesome superhero who has no dark side. Is there a dark side of the superhero?
For sure. You know, maybe they were a very bad, like I'm sure they have some sort of backstory.
They have a dark past. They were the worst pedestrian.
They were maybe the worst ever. Yes.
They were the worst. They were either the victim of the or the perpetrator of
one or the other, or both.
It's getting very bleak, but like, just pedestrian nonsense.
Yeah.
has to start there. And they
Has
turned
to
it to like a champion of this is
yeah,
really what I want in a more of a
right.
Superman way than a Batman way, I think. I want there, here I am, trying to go up some stairs and here you are,
Just trying
and
to get
and
to my
and
house.
suddenly zooming over is
Yeah.
I think I will entertain myself with this fantasy as
I
I walk
love this.
along. And this
Um,
will I don't
you
know.
have to come up with a name for this pedestrian superhero,
Yeah.
and maybe
Yeah.
what they look like also.
Yeah.
That would
I
be
think I
fantastic.
fully want a sort of like Clark Kent figure of like you look at him and he's a normal, mild-mannered pedestrian wearing spectacles,
Oh, I
not
love
walking
that.
particularly fast or slow.
Porcelain. Mhm.
And then like a silly pedestrian scuffle breaks out and you look around and the mild-mannered man is gone, but you don't even notice because he was so
Yeah,
unnoticeable.
yeah.
But
Mhm.
suddenly there's a guy with a cape and tights and he's sorting
Mhm.
out pedestrian issues.
That's lovely.
I want something like that. And then the world's a better place.
100%. I like this very much.
It's hard to say if this is like a vigilante fantasy or like a fascist fantasy of wanting someone who takes control and sets things right. Because as a single lone pedestrian, what can you do? And then he turns to you and goes, "But all of us have the power. If we work together,
Yeah. Yeah.
everyone has the power to make the sidewalk a better place."
Yeah. And it's a shared place, right? It's a shared place with lots of people and it's a very limited amount of time. No, I think it's exactly the kind of space where a superhero is needed that has never been there.
No, a
There's
champion
no movie
of
about
culture.
no, yeah, I have not seen this.
Yeah. All right, we have let's for 2 more minutes, let's spitball about this great ideal. This is the
Yeah,
etiquette solution. We outsource it to someone else, really.
the superhero, right? Yeah, because there's really no solution outside of that. We just need an external adjudicator.
Yeah, an authority
Mild
figure.
mannered. Yep, yep.
Yeah. He has a
Um,
tragic slash dark past.
yeah,
He's channeled that into being a mighty hero of the
yeah,
pavement.
yeah. Hero of the pavement.
Um, his work is never finished because there's
Ever.
always
Yeah. There's always
perpetrators of all sorts.
yeah. So many sidewalks.
Yeah.
And his work is like wholly it's not glamorous, right? Like of all the
Oh, it's
different
so
superheroes you could be,
of
like
all
it's
the
the most
super yeah.
pedestrian, like
It is the most pedestrian. He's the pedestrian.
done. This is
That's
great.
it. That's his title. And he goes to the superhero conventions, and there's all these cool superheroes, and everyone turns their nose up at the pedestrian, even though he does such essential work and has made the city a better place. It's become invisible after time. When sidewalk etiquette is good, no one thinks to thank him. When it's bad, they're like, "Where are you, man?" And he was like, "I was on the other side of town sorting out like a dog walking thing." And they're
Yeah,
like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, the pedestrian."
pedestrian. And and if this was a movie, it would have like little flashbacks where he like saved each of their lives without them ever even knowing.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. You play the movie back and
Yep.
he's done a thing like way up on the sidewalk that has
Yeah.
caused
Mhm.
everything to be fine to you so that you could just you could walk to the dentist. You could
Yep.
do like the most like walk you never thought of.
Yeah.
But his task is a sorely thankless one.
Mhm.
Maybe he exists already and we don't even know about him.
This could be exactly right. Well,
It's a little
maybe
sad.
this would make him feel good though, right? Because he'd be like, "Hey, at least they're talking about me."
Yeah.
And at
I
the end of
think
the
this would
episode,
make him sad.
they realize maybe I even exist.
Maybe I exist. All right, this one goes out to you, the pedestrian. We dedicate this one to you and to all your loyal followers. We are grateful for you, and we should have a beer sometime and talk about how it sucks to share the sidewalk sometime.
If you're listening to us, please reach out.
Reach out to us. Let's have a beer. We'll buy you a beer. That's what we'll do for your
Buy it
etiquette
for you.
things.
Yes, we
We'll
will.
buy you a beer. And you know what? Next time I see someone doing like positive good etiquette on the sidewalk, I'll go up to them and I'll be like, "You're a follower of the pedestrian, I see," and freak him out. I think that's what
That would be
we should begin
hilarious.
doing. Well, if he doesn't exist, we shall have to invent him. And the
Yeah,
opposite of like the bogeyman of the sidewalks, we'll have like the great. Haven't you heard of the great hero of the
wonderful.
sidewalks?
Wonderful.
All right, we've solved this etiquette problem for today. Listeners, if you have questions about how you can reach out to the pedestrian or how you can, may I say, audition for the role of the pedestrian, Please send us your questions at noetiquettepodcast@gmail.com. Thank you so much for joining us. We will see you next time here on No Etiquette. And until then, it is good etiquette to make the sidewalks a better place in whatever capacity you have within yourselves. We will see you next time.
Good night.